The salmon in your cart is naturally gray. Someone chose that color pink from a numbered swatch on a chemical company's color wheel, the same way you'd pick a paint chip at Home Depot. And while you were standing at that fish counter, drawn in by that gorgeous deep pink, trusting that color as a signal of freshness and quality and something caught wild in cold, clean water, it is the grocery store that ordered that shade, arranged the lighting over the case to make it glow, and then priced it like it was top tier. Wild-caught Atlantic salmon hasn't been commercially legal since 1948. The species is federally endangered. It's merely a marketing term. So every piece of wild-caught Atlantic salmon at every chain on this list came from a net pen, only disclosed in small type on the back of the package, in a tiny font you'd never read before you already felt good about your choice. We are about to take on 7 grocery chains lying to you about your salmon selection. Subscribe and let's inspect your fish. Target launched Good & Gather in 2019 on a single foundational promise. No synthetic colors, no artificial preservatives, cleaner ingredients than the generic tier, a store brand you could actually feel good about. In February 2026, they made headlines by announcing they were removing synthetic colors from their Good & Gather cereal line specifically because customers asked. Target knows their audience cares about this. They've built an entire brand identity around the fact that Target cares about this. The Good & Gather Atlantic salmon, however, carries a color-added disclosure on the back label. Synthetic astaxanthin, the petrochemical-derived pigment that turns gray farmed flesh into the shade ordered from a numbered swatch, was added to the feed that produced the fish inside the Good & Gather package. The front of the brand says no synthetic colors. The back of the fish says color added. Moowi, one of the 5 companies that supply over half of all farmed Atlantic salmon globally, is confirmed as a Target supplier. The Good & Gather label goes on whatever shows up from whichever procurement round it came from. And the brand promise on the front continues doing its work on every customer who doesn't flip the package over. That's number 7. Number 6 is the store you specifically shop at, because you trust them to have already caught exactly this. Whole Foods actually did something nobody else on this list bothered to do. Their aquaculture standard specifically requires that astaxanthin used as a pigment in their farmed salmon come from non-synthetic, fermentation-derived sources, rather than the petrochemical version DSM sells to everyone else. That's a real distinction, and it deserves acknowledgement. But the Whole Foods standard addresses what pigment goes into the feed. It does not ask a single question about what the fish are swimming in while they eat that feed. Every kilogram of farmed salmon produces approximately 162 grams of feces released directly into coastal water. Sea lice breed in the crowded pen conditions, eat through the skin of living fish, and a NASCO scientific review confirmed they cause 100% mortality in wild juvenile salmon carrying more than 6 lice. The banned ingredients list is 300 items long and covers what goes into the product. It was never designed to cover what the production process puts into the ocean. At $18 a pound, the customers shopping at Whole Foods have every reason to expect both questions were asked. Only one of them was. That's number 6. Number 5 put the Pacific Ocean inside the word Atlantic and hoped nobody would check a map. Flip the package, find color added. It's legally required on every farmed Atlantic salmon in America. 2 words in small type near the UPC code. And if the flesh is pink and those words are there, a paint swatch chose that color, not the ocean. Kroger's Atlantic salmon says farm raised in Chile in small type, which is doing a remarkable amount of geographic work very quietly. We all know Chile is in South America, on the Pacific coast, and the Atlantic Ocean is on the other side of the continent, 3,000 miles east, which means the fish named Atlantic salmon on Kroger's label was raised in the Pacific Ocean, shipped 5,000 miles across the equator, and named after the body of water it has never been anywhere near. The name is a species designation, technically accurate, in the same way that calling a factory-farmed chicken is free-range, because it briefly stood in a doorway is technically arguable. The country behind that small type disclosure carries the highest aquaculture antibiotic load in global production. Chile uses between 300 and 500 metric tons of antibiotics per year in salmon farming, driven by the crowded pen conditions where disease spreads faster than it can be controlled without pharmaceutical intervention. None of that load appears anywhere on the label. Farm Raised in Chile is doing the disclosure. Atlantic Salmon is doing the marketing. Kroger is counting on you reading the large type and stopping there. That's number 5. Number 4 made a public commitment to fix exactly this problem in 2015 and then quietly reversed course when the supply chain required it. In 2015, Costco made headlines by sending letters to their major seafood suppliers demanding action on antibiotic use in aquaculture, a genuinely progressive procurement decision that food journalists wrote about and the seafood industry took seriously. Costco committed publicly to sourcing from operations reducing antibiotic dependence. They meant it at the time. Then COVID disrupted global supply chains, and Costco's own member community documented, through years of forum posts, country of origin comparisons, and product reviews, that the supplier behind the Kirkland Atlantic Salmon has quietly rotated between Norway and Chile depending on procurement availability. The Chilean sourcing cycles back in when inventory requires it. Costco has not publicly updated their position on which country produced the fish currently in your hand, and the packaging gives you the country of origin in small type without telling you which procurement cycle you're in. What the packaging does tell you is the ingredient list. Farm-raised Atlantic salmon, water, salt, color added, 4 ingredients, 2 of which exist because the government required the company to say them. Behind that 4-ingredient list, at peak sourcing, approximately 600,000 pounds of this product moves through Costco warehouses every single week. Costco's antibiotic-free standard is genuine and worth acknowledging. A public commitment made in 2015, quietly complicated by supply chain reality in 2020, is a different thing than that commitment never having been made at all. That's number 4. Number 3 wrote copy about the Atlantic's frigid waters for a fish that arrives frozen from Norway and gets thawed in the back of the store. Trader Joe's product page describes their Atlantic salmon as coming from the Atlantic's frigid waters. The fish arrives frozen from Norway and gets thawed in-store before appearing in the case as fresh. Norway's waters are frigid, technically, so the description is not entirely wrong. It just conjures an image of wild Atlantic heritage that the product's actual history cannot support. Trader Joe's built something genuinely rare, a customer base that trusts the store's judgment the way most people trust a food-obsessed friend. That trust is earned across hundreds of products where TJ's actually did the work. Atlantic salmon is the category where that trust gets spent rather than earned because the eating experience the brand implies is categorically different from the one the fish delivers. Farmed Atlantic salmon has an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 0.7. Wild sockeye runs 0.05, 14 times better, because a fish that swam thousands of miles eating actual prey builds lean, dense muscle, instead of the thick, white fat deposits that accumulate in a fish that circles a 30-foot cage for 2 years. That fat produces flesh that customers who've cooked both describe as soft and flat, mushy, tastes like nothing, falls apart in the pan, appear in reviews with enough regularity to constitute a pattern, not just a preference. Trader Joe's tasted it, they approved it, and then they wrote the marketing copy about frigid Atlantic waters for it. That's number 3. Number 2 has the most beautiful seafood counter in American retail and is doing the exact same thing from behind a glass case with a handwritten price sign. Look at the fat lines before you buy anything. A farmed salmon that never swam has thick white fat stripes running through the flesh. A wild salmon that swam thousands of miles has thin lines and dense dark muscle, and you can see the difference right through the packaging without reading a single word on the label. The Publix seafood counter is a genuinely impressive thing, staffed by people who know what they're talking about. Fish laid out on crushed ice behind glass with handwritten price signs. The whole presentation calibrated to feel like a real fishmonger rather than a grocery store, and consistently rated as the best seafood counter in American grocery retail by the kind of publications that track these things. When you buy fish from the Publix seafood counter, you feel like you made a careful choice. Here's something genuinely interesting about Publix and salmon specifically. In 2020, they partnered with Atlantic Sapphire to sell Blue House Salmon, a land-based farmed Atlantic salmon raised in tanks in South Florida. no net pens, no ocean discharge, no sea lice treatments flowing into coastal water. That product exists in Publix stores. It represents a real attempt to solve the net pen problem. It sits next to conventional net pen Atlantic Salmon in the same seafood case with no visual differentiation at the counter. The Blue House salmon carries its own label if you look for it. The conventional net pen salmon sits beside it on the same crushed ice behind the same glass. A customer who doesn't already know to look for the Blue House distinction cannot tell from the presentation which fish came from a land-based tank and which came from a Norwegian net pen, because the theater of the counter is identical for both, and the farm-raised and color-added disclosures appear on the back of both packages in the same small type. Publix solved part of the problem and then arranged it, so you'd have to already know the answer to find the solution. That's number 2. Number 1 skipped the theater and just wrote it on their website in all capital letters. Walmart's Marketside Atlantic Salmon ingredient list, as published on Walmart's own product page, reads in its entirety: salmon, color added. Those parentheses around color added are working very hard for 2 punctuation marks. They soften the phrase visually, make it feel like a technical footnote, something minor and regulatory, a formality the lawyers required and the marketing team minimized. What they actually mean is the flesh of the fish you are looking at is a color that was not produced by anything the fish ate in the wild, because this fish has never been in the wild. It is a chemical company's manufactured pigment. A farmer ordered a swatch number, adjusted the feed concentration, and the flesh arrived at your fish counter looking like something it has never once been. And Walmart listed the entire process on their own website in 2 words, in capital letters, inside parentheses, as though the parentheses would help. They didn't. Walmart sells more food than any retailer on earth. They wrote salmon, color added, on their own website, in capital letters. The parentheses were the only mercy they showed. The only salmon that can legally be wild caught: sockeye, king, coho, pink, chum, all Pacific species. Look for the MSC Bluefish certification on the label, because Atlantic means farmed every time, without exception. And that has been true since 1948. Not everything in the salmon case is the same conversation. Wild Alaskan sockeye from Bristol Bay is the right answer for most people most of the time, and it's available frozen at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and Costco year-round, right next to the Atlantic salmon that just spent 7 sections explaining itself. Bristol Bay runs the largest self-sustaining wild salmon run in the world, managed by one of the most rigorously regulated fisheries on the planet, labeled by specific fishing districts so the origin is traceable rather than decorative. A 4-ounce serving contains 4.5 milligrams of natural astaxanthin from the actual krill and shrimp the fish ate in the open ocean. The fat lines are thin, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 0.05. The color-added disclosure is absent from the label because there's nothing to add. The color came from thousands of miles of open ocean feeding, the way salmon color is supposed to come from. Wild Alaskan Company is the answer for people who want to know exactly where the fish came from. Not Alaska as a region, but the specific bay, the specific fishing district, the specific harvest date printed on the package. Every order comes with that information, flash frozen at sea to preserve what the fish built in the wild. Independent reviews consistently put the quality at restaurant grade, which is the appropriate comparison because restaurant grade fish is what you get when the supply chain starts with genuine wild-caught product and handles it correctly all the way to your kitchen. King salmon, Chinook, is the answer for the occasions when the fish is the occasion. The largest Pacific species, the highest natural omega-3 content of any salmon, the flavor profile that explains why salmon has the reputation it does among people who've actually eaten the real thing. Snake River Farms and Wild Alaskan Company both source it. It costs more than farmed Atlantic salmon. It is not the same product as farmed Atlantic salmon. The price gap is real, and so is the difference between them. Does it say Atlantic salmon? That means farmed. The wild fishery has been federally closed since 1948, and a 2024 DNA study found that nearly a fifth of salmon sold as wild in retail was actually farmed Atlantic. Atlantic means net pen, every time, no exceptions. Does the back label say color added? It will be there, legally required, always in small type, always near the UPC code. Those two words mean the color of the flesh was specified by a numbered swatch on a chemical company's color fan. The fish didn't produce it, the feed department did. Are there thick white fat lines running through the fillet? That mean the fish never swam anywhere. Thin lines, dense dark muscle, deep natural color mean it did. That visual doesn't require a label. Does it say sockeye, king, coho, pink, or chum with the MSC Blue Fish certification? Those are Pacific species, legally wild-caught in Alaska, independently certified as sustainably sourced. That's the one. 7 chains, 7 labels, the same dyed farmed fish named after an endangered species at every price point, with the disclosure buried in small type on the back while the word Atlantic does its work on the front. The color wheel picked the pink. The net pen built the fat. The label said color added the whole time. Right where they put it, the entire time you've been buying it. Most people will keep reaching for the pink fillet without flipping the package over. You just did. Comment B2E if you made it to the end, subscribe to support us, and check out the grocery store cheat sheet. In the description, it's everything we expose on this channel in one printable guide. Thanks for watching.